Grace Holloway was the kind of woman who laughed too loud, cried too easily, and ordered dessert before dinner because life was too short for waiting. She lived in Seattle, worked as a project manager, and had a weakness for bad reality TV and even worse, coffee. Her friends used to call her Miss Always in Control. Her apartment was spotless, her meetings were punctual, and her calendar was color-coded like a rainbow. Had an anxiety attack. But one morning everything that made sense stopped making sense. She woke up feeling dizzy. It felt like her brain was buffering. She tried to get up to brush her teeth, but her hand refused to cooperate. Her toothbrush hit the floor and her body followed. When she opened her eyes again, she wasn't in her apartment. She was in a hospital. Machines beeping. Voices blurry. A doctor leaning over her saying, "Grace, you had a stroke." A stroke? At 34. Now Grace didn't even know people her age could have strokes. She thought that was something that happened to old men who yelled at clouds and ate bacon for breakfast. But apparently life doesn't check your birth certificate before it punches you in the face. Half her body was paralyzed. Her speech was slurred. And her perfectly color-coded life fell apart overnight. She went from being Miss Always in Control to Miss Can't Even Hold a Spoon. At first she was angry. Angry at her body for betraying her. Angry at her friends for not knowing what to say. Angry at the universe for giving her kale when she clearly ordered cake. Her hospital days were slow. Physical therapy, speech therapy, patience therapy, and a lot of crying into hospital pillows that smelled like sanitizer and sadness. One day her doctor told her something she never forgot. He said, "Grace, you may not walk the same again, but that doesn't mean you can't move forward." That line hit her harder than the diagnosis itself. So she made a decision. If she couldn't control her body, she would control her comeback. Grace started documenting her recovery on social media. At first it was just small updates, like learning to lift a cup, or managing to stand for 10 seconds without falling like a drunk giraffe. She made jokes about her progress. She said things like, "My left leg is still on vacation, but at least it sends postcards." People loved it. Because it was real, raw, funny and heartbreaking all at once. Soon thousands began following her journey. They weren't there for perfection. They were there for perseverance. Her therapists called her stubborn. Her followers called her brave. Grace just called herself tired but trying. Months went by. She went from a wheelchair to a walker to wobbly steps that looked like a baby deer on ice. But they were her steps. And every single one was a victory. Her friends started visiting again. Her laughter slowly returned. And one day she looked in the mirror, half her smile still crooked, but her eyes full of life. And she whispered, "I am still here." That became her mantra. I am still here. It was written on sticky notes, on her bathroom mirror, on her phone wallpaper, on her heart. When doctors told her not to expect much improvement, she told them, "You clearly haven't met my stubbornness." Grace spent a full year in rehab. Her family called it recovery. She called it round two. When she finally walked out of that hospital on her own 2 feet, people clapped. Nurses cried. And she thought, "Okay, life, maybe you didn't kill me. Now let's see what I can do with this second chance." She didn't know it yet. But that moment was the start of something much bigger than healing. It was the birth of her purpose. Grace returned home with a limp and a fire in her heart. Her doctors told her to take it easy, but she had already spent a year sitting. She wanted to move. So she began writing. Not about health or medicine, but about resilience. She started a blog called The Woman Who Lived Twice. She wrote about everything. The fear, the hospital food, the loneliness of recovery, and the awkward moment when your brain forgets how to say banana in front of your nurse. Her posts were emotional yet funny, and that combination made people feel seen. Soon emails started pouring in. From stroke survivors. From people recovering from accidents. From moms who said, "Your words made me want to try again." That's when she realized she wasn't just surviving. She was serving. She started getting invited to small community events to talk about her journey. At first she was nervous. Her voice still shook. Her left hand trembled. But the audience didn't care. They weren't there for perfect delivery. They were there for honest words. She said things like, "I used to chase success, now I chase sunsets." And, "I may have lost part of my strength, but I found all of my soul." People laughed and cried. And suddenly Grace Holloway, the woman who once couldn't hold a spoon, was holding microphones in front of hundreds of people. She became a motivational speaker by accident. But she stayed one by purpose. Her story reached local news, then national media, and soon she was standing on TEDx stages with spotlights on her and tears in the crowd. She didn't talk about miracles. She talked about mornings when she didn't want to wake up, about learning to tie her shoes again, about how she used to think weakness was failure, but now she knew it was just another form of strength. Her humor stayed. She'd say, "My left hand still does its own thing, but at least it keeps life interesting." That line became a meme. People wore it on shirts. It became a symbol of accepting imperfections. She later founded a nonprofit called Second Motion to help young stroke survivors get access to therapy and emotional support. Her motto, "Don't wait to be whole to be happy." Grace kept speaking, writing, helping. Her book, The Woman Who Lived Twice, hit bestseller lists. She got invited to talk shows, to podcasts, to schools where kids who had seen their parents in hospital beds found hope again. But fame never changed her. She still kept her life simple. She still made bad coffee. She still laughed too loud. One night after a long event, she sat on her hotel balcony, looking at the city lights, and whispered, "I almost didn't get to see this." And then she smiled, crooked but proud. Grace Holloway had become the woman she needed when she was lying in that hospital bed. Years later, she was asked in an interview, "What would you say to the old you, the one who woke up paralyzed that morning?" She said, "I would tell her you will walk again. But more importantly, you will make others move again." Her story became a symbol for millions who thought their life had ended after tragedy. She showed them it had only restarted. Because some people die once, and others live twice.